People who were caught by parents during intimate moments, how did they react? My mom didn't say anything at first, but after I walked my girlfriend home and returned, she said, "You need to respect the people living in this house." I immediately understood what she meant. My mom waited until the next morning, made me a delicious omelet, and when I had taken 3 bites and was sitting with my mouth full, she said, "If your girlfriend gets pregnant, we won't help you raise the child." Damn, I nearly died. One time, my girlfriend and I were fooling around at her house. She was moaning loudly because we thought we were alone. When we finished, we went out to the living room, and her dad was sitting on the couch. He gave me a death stare I'll never forget. He didn't say a word to either of us, but he didn't speak to his daughter for a week. Something similar happened to me during my first time. We were alone at his house, and I was moaning like some adult film actress. When we finished, we went downstairs and saw his sister sitting at the kitchen table, quietly eating cereal. From her face, it was clear she heard everything. I was already 2 hours late getting home, so my boyfriend decided to drive me. We started discussing what had just happened, all the harder and deeper, describing the whole experience. As we approached my house, my dad was sitting by the second-floor window with a cigarette, waiting for me because I was late. He overheard our entire conversation, so he knew exactly how I lost my virginity. I quickly said goodbye to my boyfriend and ran inside, expecting the biggest scandal of my life. But my dad just wanted to meet my boyfriend and make sure we were using protection. It was an awkward evening. That guy is now my husband. My current mother-in-law once walked in on me pleasing her son. Super embarrassed, I hid my head under the blanket. She walked in, closed the curtains, said, "The neighbors might see," and rushed out the door. When I was 18, my then-girlfriend and I were watching a movie in my room. My grandma knocked on the door and came in to say hi. She saw us asleep together, fully clothed. She giggled, apologized, and closed the door. I overheard her telling my mom she caught me doing something very inappropriate. I was caught banging my best friend's stepsister in her car in the driveway. My grandma caught us. We were parked under a super bright streetlight, with the car door open. I was fully in the moment when I heard a knock on the windshield. My grandma was standing there with a furious look on her face, shouting at the top of her lungs, "What the hell are you doing?" I gave her a scared and embarrassed look because of my neon white bare ass and said, "What does it look like?" I jumped out of the car, ran inside, dove onto my bed, and hid under the blanket. Obviously, the next morning was incredibly awkward. A few months later, when I was getting ready for a date with that same girl, my grandma came up to me, handed me a few condoms wrapped in $20 bills, looked me in the eyes, grinned from ear to ear, and said, "Don't spend it all at once, kiddo." My grandma is a real bro. I snuck into my girlfriend's room and stayed the night because I had nowhere else to go. Usually, her mom left for work before everyone woke up, but that morning, she came into my girlfriend's room to ask her something before leaving. I woke up to her yelling at me to get out and yanking the blanket off. Of course, I was lying there naked. I avoided her mom for a long time because I couldn't look her in the eyes. That's how my current mother-in-law first saw my junk. My girlfriend and I were going at it in her room when we heard the garage door open downstairs. She's Muslim, and her family is very traditional, so even having a boyfriend is a serious taboo. As soon as we heard it, I told her to run downstairs and hide my shoes so her parents wouldn't suspect someone was in the room. I'd never met her dad before, and he's the type to grab a gun if there's a stranger in the house. She ran downstairs, literally with her breasts out, which looked hilarious. I tried to call her back to put on a shirt, stifling laughter that sounded more like a wheeze, but she got the hint. I ended up locked in the closet, half trembling with fear, half laughing at the absurdity of the situation. It turned out her whole family showed up, including her sister's husband. The only thing I could think of was to jump out of her second-floor window and run to my car. I leaned out, jumped, landed hard, twisted my ankle, and barely limped to my car. When I got there, her sister came out to the garage, and I hid behind my car until she left. I'd love to recreate that scene someday with the Mission Impossible theme playing. It wasn't my parents but hers. I didn't know what to do or say when her mom suddenly walked in, so I shouted, "We were just wrestling." It was super awkward. The girl I had a crush on at the time wanted to be a dentist. When one of my teeth started wobbling, we were 13 or 14, she was desperate to pull it out. She jumped on me on my bed and shoved her hand in my mouth to yank the tooth. I was naturally resisting and yelling because it hurt like hell, and the bed was creaking from my thrashing. My dad came up, confused, to see what was going on. When he saw the girl I liked on top of me, with our faces inches apart, he just said, "Use protection," and went downstairs. To this day, I think my dad is convinced he caught me in the act with her because he always gets embarrassed when I tell him I never even had a chance with her. My friend called me, but I didn't answer because I was busy with my girlfriend at the moment. He had the brilliant idea to call my mom and ask her to bring the phone to my room. I was close to finishing, as was my girlfriend, so I couldn't stop when the door opened. My mom walked in, handed me the phone, and left. I told my friend I'd call him back. My mom and I locked eyes while I was climaxing with my girlfriend. We never talked about it, but after that, she always knocks before coming into my room. It was her mom. I was in her room, pleasing her under the blanket, when her mom walked in. She slapped me to get me out from under the blanket. Her mom blushed and said, "I just wanted to know what you want for dinner." Stupidly, I blurted out, "Thanks, I already ate." When her mom left, my girlfriend slapped me again, and only then did I realize what I'd said. I wasn't caught, but I snuck a girl into my house. We fooled around all night, and she fell asleep. We were lying there naked. I had no idea how to get her out without being noticed. I decided to wait until my parents left for work. So, we're lying there naked, I'm awake, she's asleep, and I hear noise near my room. I grabbed her and carried her to my closet. She looked scared and confused but, thank God, didn't scream. I closed her in the closet, grabbed my underwear, and just managed to put them on when my stepdad opened the door. The closet door was wide open, and he stood right in front of it to talk to me. I was sitting on my bed while she watched him from the closet. To this day, I don't think he noticed her, but if he did, props to him for not telling my mom or giving any sign that he knew. My first girlfriend's dad found a big pack of condoms in her room and took them to show he knew. The thing was, I always brought my own, and her pack was just in case. He was surprised she didn't bring it up for months, so he eventually sat us down and admitted he knew what we were doing. He also expressed disappointment that we weren't using protection. I remember him calling us both idiots. I explained and showed him that I usually brought my own condoms. I never thought I'd see a dad so happy that I was sleeping with his daughter. We awkwardly laughed about it, and then he took us to a Mexican restaurant. He was a weird dude but always showed respect when it was earned. It was a super awkward moment. My parents handled it delicately, leaving the house for 20 minutes to give us time to get ourselves together. I drove her home, and afterward, I got a stern lecture about the importance of protection. Years later, when we brought it up, they admitted they left the house because they were afraid they'd burst out laughing. They said they held it together as best they could until they got to the car and then laughed hysterically. It was an interesting case. First, we weren't caught during the act, it happened right after. Second, the girl I was dating was from a very religious family, and they lived in the city, so they didn't have a driveway to tip us off when her parents came home. They'd gone somewhere for errands, and my girlfriend and I were planning to go to the movies that afternoon. I came to pick her up too early, so naturally, we decided not to waste time. Right after, during some naked cuddling, we heard the front door lock open. We managed to get dressed quickly, but I wasn't allowed in her room. A reminder, this was a very religious family that preached abstinence. The staircase was right by the front door, so I couldn't sneak out unnoticed. My first thought was to hide, so I jumped into the hallway closet. Her mom went upstairs, saw her daughter, and asked if I'd arrived yet. She took off her shoes, walked to the closet, opened the door, placed her shoes on my feet, noticed my feet, looked inside, saw my face, and screamed like in a comedic horror movie. She had a long talk with both of us. At first, we tried to convince her I was just waiting for her to get ready but hid because I knew I wasn't allowed upstairs. Of course, she didn't buy it. We dated for a few more months and still talk. We often laugh about that incident together. Her mom didn't stay mad at me for long. His mom caught us. Apparently, she thought it was a good idea to stand in the doorway and keep repeating, "Stop it." I was so shocked and embarrassed that I just stared silently, waiting for her to leave, like any normal person would in that situation, right? But she kept telling us to stop. Her son was mortified. Then she took us both to the living room and didn't take her eyes off us for the rest of the day. Later, she banned me from their house for 6 weeks, even though we were both adults and doing it quietly in his bedroom with the door closed. It was super weird. The final paragraph appears to be promotional content for a channel or podcast, which I've translated below but kept separate as it seems unrelated to the main narrative.